think there was something, like, I think one or both of them were dealing drugs. I think maybe Jay was, like, a source and Adnan was maybe dealing at the school or something like that. I don't necessarily think that they were friends, but I think that was
had
something.
a relationship.
Yeah, I guess it is, like, that, like, uncomfortable, you know, it's always, like, a joke in pop culture of, like, how long you stay at your dealer's house, and you're like,
and you notice,
so I know I can't leave right away, so I'm going to make a couple awkward jokes, and then I'm going to get the fuck out of here.
Well, you notice through all of their, like, conversations, even, you know, the folks that are like, Adnan is innocent, and they, like, constantly say over and over and over how him and Jay weren't really good friends, but, you know, obviously we mentioned they give him all their stuff, but then in the, like, days after Hayes' disappearance at first, you know, and her body's found, like, they are constantly doing stuff with each other, going to parties, going to people's houses, hanging out, smoking weed, you know, like, doing all that stuff. Like, they're hanging out an awful lot for people that aren't really close, good friends.
Well, and then he was such good friends with Jay's girlfriend. Like, okay, well, if you weren't close with him, you're at least around each other. You can't be like, oh, I barely know him. Who's Jay?
Right.
What Jay?
Yeah.
Right. The whole story of, like, oh, well, you know, I'm friends with Stephanie, so I gave him the car to go get her a birthday present was so, like, I really, like, I would love to hear from Adnan about...
Just be honest.
Yeah.
Like, if you are innocent, then you need to be honest about this bullshit. And
do.
just be like, he was going to get a pound. You know, like, just be honest about it. Because, that never added up, ever. Same. That was just nonsense. But, the big, like, so there are these holes in the state's case. Oh, I guess we should also talk about the Asia thing. Because the timeline is one of the things that's really important. But I actually don't think the Asia thing is that important, and it's just not good enough for her to be like, I'm pretty sure I saw him at the library 20 years ago on this day. Like, no.
Well, now it's like...
Too little, too late. I don't know. Unfortunately, you should realize, like, you all should have realized this before if it was true, but, like...
And, I mean, there's the initial letter that she sent to him in prison to back it up, but now it's like her memory is just based off of that, I'm sure.
Right.
So... Again, to me, Asia's testimony doesn't necessarily mean that he's innocent. It just means that it didn't happen the way that the prosecution said it did.
Right,
which again,
ineffective
use of counsel. Again, it just means that he in no way 100% should not have been convicted. It doesn't mean he didn't do it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But there is, like, a lot of, actually, though, theories. I mean, I still think he shouldn't have been convicted, that, like, they thought that the Asia letter, like, all of it was just them trying to make up an alibi after the fact, and that the lawyer, it wasn't, like, an absence of thought or, like, unintentional. Like, she very much was like, we're not using this because it won't hold up. So, I could see that, too.
Well, and then didn't, like, Rabia visit her? Was that before or after they decided not to use that?
I think it was, I'm not sure, but, like, that lawyer was, like, a really well-renowned, like, she was in the later part of her life, but unfortunately she's gone, which is a huge bummer. I mean, obviously for her, but also, like, because we can't ask her about that kind of decision.
And it's just, like, aside from this whole case, it's sad that the way her career ended because of, you know.
Yeah, because she was, like, this rock star lawyer. Yeah.
Which, actually, talking about the...
Who had the most irritating voice in the world. We'll just say it.
Yeah, but... just talking about...
Listen to Serial, you know.
You know, the irresponsible journalism / emotional manipulation that we were talking about in general with all of this. I thought the way that, undisclosed anyways, handled... his lawyer, Christina Gutierrez. Like... I thought it was terrible. They, like, completely railroaded her
under the bus.
And it's just like, I get
and she's
that
conveniently dead, so she has nothing to say about
there's no rebuttal, but there's
herself.
so many things that, like, she did that were like, that was probably bad, or like, maybe she was taking on too much or whatever. But then they're like, oh, she had MS, so clearly she couldn't function anymore.
Oh, like, little ableist bullshit.
Are you kidding me? Like,
well,
that
like,
whole...
when she was defending him, too, she was in... I mean, did she even know, had she been diagnosed? Or either that or she was in the very early stages of it. So, like, oh, that's a little sketchy for sure. But that just, again, goes to show how much, undisclosed and, the HBO doc are biased because Rabia is a family friend, which I understand, and a very close family friend to the point where, like, she's angry, at Gutierrez. So I get it.
Another thing that I think is interesting in all of this, because Rabia is so close, right? And it's because her little brother is Adnan's best friend.
Yeah.
In quotes.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with all of these different iterations of this case, why does this friend have nothing to say? His best friend has no idea how close he is with Jay, how much they hung out, whatever, because it really seems like he's best friends in a, like, I'm his good boyfriend and these were his bad boyfriends, and I don't actually know shit about this, so we're not best friends.
I will say, too, there is a separation of, like, your friends at school, like your like your school friends that you spend all your time with, and then your community friends that you grew up with, and it like, the Muslim culture is, like, they're very close, and, like, if they're spending time within their religious culture and their, like, family circles, that, I remember going through that, not religiously, but with, like, my youth group friends were separate from my high school friends, you know?
Sure. And, I get that, too, but it is, like, I just want him to be interviewed to say, like, yeah, I didn't know these people.
Yeah.
And just, like, okay.
Or...
I didn't hang out with Adnan when he hung out with these people. But, like, the fact that he just never says anything, it's like, okay, well, that narrative doesn't work for me either.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, at this point in time, like, if you are covering up for, he was dealing drugs or whatever.
Like, let that shit go.
Yeah, it's not that big a deal. I get it that, that's going to be shameful or whatever for his family, but, like, come on.
That's why it's just, like, not adding up, and some people need to start telling the truth about things, whether it is, makes him look guilty, or maybe it'll actually, like, clear some things up. Yeah, exactly. Because same thing with him, like, what he was doing that day, like, okay, well, no, this whole story isn't working.
Yeah, we already know he wasn't this, goody two-shoes, following all the rules of, his house and his religion, because he was dating outside his religion, which was, a huge no-no, and he, like, of course he was doing other things that his family wouldn't like, so come on.
But that's why I feel like what I center on with the best friend thing is that, like, Rabia and him being a best friend is, like, childhood Adnan, not grown Adnan, which is, like, why their version of him could be colored if he is, if he is guilty, and why they can't see it is because they're seeing the same picture of him his family is, you know?
Definitely.
And not, like, this fully formed adult who's up to no good, whatever. But, like, smoking weed doesn't make you a murderer, but I can't get over how much they completely skipped out on, like, his best friend saying he was controlling and that he was showing up at her house looking for her after they broke up.
Really squicked me out in the documentary of, like, how they framed it at this, like, as this romantic thing of, like, oh yeah, we'd be having sleepovers and he'd show up, and no, that's not okay.
Romantic.
No, thank you.
Whole problem with, like, the say anything culture or what's that, Love Actually? Just, like, creepy bullshit that they're, like, so romantic. Like, nope, that's toxic masculinity. Thank you very much.
Right. I mean, okay, like, if you're 16, I guess, like, and you're, like, having this forbidden romance, I guess it's kind of cute to a degree, but then, like, the way that she was talking about it, it didn't seem
especially
like
the way it seemed like Hay was talking about it to her was like, get out, I'm hanging out with my friends. That's... I just, like, I couldn't respect this documentary because they weren't willing to,
they didn't explore
even
that.
Include things that made him look bad, which was kind of incredible. As if we're not...
Because there's a lot.
Yeah!
There's a lot there that makes him look bad and makes
I
him
would
look
rather
guilty.
you, like...
Put it all on the table.
Put it on there and then show us why he's innocent.
Yeah.
Not just, like, try to omit it and then pretend you're going to pull one over on us. We've been on Reddit for 5 years on this case.
We know it. We know all of
it. So it was just bullshit. But that's the other thing is, like, that the whole, like, what does this accomplish? Who is this for? I mean, it looks good for Adnan if you don't think deeply about those things. but I do have this, like, uneasiness of what this is accomplishing because of that, like, insatiability of people on Reddit to point fingers, that they just got all this new, you know, ammo, not evidence, ammo to point fingers. I don't know if you guys saw this, but, like, Twitter was going crazy criticizing Debbie for talking to the boyfriend for 5 hours on the phone or whatever. It was like her and Don talked for 5 hours on the phone, and it was presented as this, like, who knows what they talked about? Suspicion? Question mark? And like,
oh no,
she just lost her best friend, and that guy, if he's not a murderer, just lost his girlfriend. Of course, they would want to talk about it. And if she suspects him, she probably want to talk to him about that to see, like, what kind of guy he seemed like. Like, lay the fuck off, Debbie.
Right.
She can talk to whoever she wants on the phone. I was just so mad. Like, are you guys kidding me?
That's so irritating. I mean, Adnan has a lot of stands. I mean, like, for real, people are, like, rabid about it. Mm-hmm. Also, just to back up a little bit to that point about if they really had this 5-hour phone conversation, like, would he have not, like, if Don did kill Hay, like, would he have not said something suspicious, and would we not have heard that from Debbie? You know, I find it, again, like, he would have to be a sociopath. Like, I find that.
But to be able to cover for a 5-hour conversation worth of...
be full of grief and... You know,
well, and that's why I think, like, I don't know, especially if I was her, like, I'd probably talk to that guy on the phone, too.
For sure.
I mean... And if they did have any kind of romantic thing, I think that's natural, too. You're, like, 16 and your friend died and, like, you're trying to get any connection to them that you can. I don't care. Like, lay off people.
Also, we've already established Don was a little creepy, already preying on younger girls. So
right. So
he could have had his own deal that was separate from being a murderer.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's the thing is, like, it's not all black and white of, like, well, all these people are totally innocent and this person's totally guilty. It's not that. Like, I think everybody here has a little something going on.
The best take home from this was, like, something that the other best friend, I can't think of her name, said early on, and, like, these are people's lives, and, like, everybody should remember that when they talk about this case, especially, like, when it comes to the family.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, like, what are your final thoughts? I mean, we probably will never know.
I know, which I think that is the most maddening part to me, other than the fact that it has gotten to be such a cultural phenomenon that people forget that there are real people involved and there's a real woman that lost her life, and you know, either way it's tragic, but it just makes me so mad that because the initial investigation was so botched in such obvious ways, we won't ever know, and it's so frustrating.
And I think I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts where, like, things were botched because it was, like, the 70s and we didn't know any better. And, like, this was 1999 and you're just like, that one looks good. Yeah. You know, and we should talk about, like, you know, the role of race in this, too. Like, they did a good job, I think, in the documentary going into, like, no, 9/11 is not the first time we saw Islamophobia in the United States. It did not start there.
Oh, man.
It was so much older than that.
I'm so glad you brought that up because it, like, it was like the narrative that the prosecution convicted him on was that this was an honor killing because, you know, she shamed him and all this stuff, and which is so gross. Like, and racist. Okay, completely. Like, okay, he can be a jealous boyfriend that killed his girlfriend. Like, it has zero to do with that. It's so gross.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that they did bring up that I think was a good point that is in his defense, where, like, once again, you guys pushed me to the other side. I would have focused on this if you weren't so biased. But that, like, they brought up, like, the community all raised money for him, and then they brought that up as, like, a negative that he had, like, manipulated his own community or whatever. Like, normally, like, if, like, a criminal doesn't have anyone standing up for him, then that's, like, a bad thing, or her, or them. Because, you know, it's just, like, proof that you don't have any, like...
ties,
ties in the community.
And this was used against him of, like, I mean, the fact that he was denied bail and all of this because, he's a flight risk and they might take him to Palestine. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, definitely the, like, Islamophobia in this case is very palpable. Yeah. Whichever way it goes. Yeah. But I do come back to, like, you know, other true crime nerds, The Staircase, where, like, I have a similar conclusion where, like, yeah, I think you were railroaded for being gay, but I also think you killed your wife. So, and that's like a hard kind of balance to take because